bit of birth control as well.
You took over the Fed in 2006. I have a silver ounce here. And this ounce of silver back in 2006 would buy over 4 gallons of gasoline. Today it'll buy almost 11 gallons of gasoline. That's preservation of values. Why couldn't people put this in a mattress and get 4 or 5 times much of the value in a few years?
That was Ron Paul earlier this week, taking a break from the campaign trail to return to his job on Capitol Hill. There's some pretty tough questions for Fed Chairman Ben Bernanke. And Ron Paul's back with me now. You really stuck it to him with that silver coin, Ron. I mean, there was incontrovertible evidence, I would argue, that if you just stuck it under the mattress, you'd have done better with your money.
Yeah, what if you put those dollars away, they lose value. You know, the paper dollars lose value because he was saying the only people concerned about inflation are only the ones who put their money in the mattress. They're concerned about it. And my point was there's a lot of people concerned, and the inflation rate is much higher, and people in fixed incomes are hurting, and the people in the middle class, they hurt a lot more with the inflation of prices than do the people on Wall Street. You know, if you're making millions, what do they care about what the price of gasoline is? But the middle class does, and the people in fixed incomes do. So it's very dramatic when you look at the value of money. And gold and silver isn't money because I think it's money. It's there because it became money 6,000 years ago. Paper money is the artificial government money, and they always destroy it. And this is why we're in this crisis. This is what we're facing in Europe. And Bernanke has promised that we will bail out Europe because our banks are involved, and we are in the derivatives market, and it's this sovereign debt. And the American people are likely to end up owning Greek debt at the rate we're going, and that has to devalue the dollar. And I think that devaluation of the dollar and the increase in prices is just beginning.
Let's turn to Iran, Ron. I know your views about this, and you're quite right, I think, to warn people about the precedent of Iraq and so on, just not rushing headlong into more conflict and so on. But let me ask you this. Would you feel comfortable with Ahmadinejad having a nuclear weapon?
I wouldn't want that to happen. I wouldn't feel any more uncomfortable than I did when I was drafted in 1962, and the Soviets had 30,000 of them, and they had nuclear weapons in Cuba. I was pretty uncomfortable then, but, you know, we use containment, and we work with it. We negotiate it. As ruthless as those thugs were in the Soviet Union, Kennedy was willing to talk to them. But we're not even willing to talk to the Iranians, and they don't even have a weapon. Our own government has no evidence that they have it or they're on the verge of having it, and yet the war drums are beating hard. They're ready to go. Just listen to the other 3 candidates. I mean, they don't hesitate for a minute to be very, very militant. Go into Syria, go into Iran, do whatever you can. And our own administration that should have most of the knowledge, they're trying to soften this. And I got that information a little bit out of Hillary yesterday before the International Relations Committee.
But do you understand why Israel in particular feels very, very vulnerable right now, with almost every country around it having the Arab Spring uprisings, and given the very outspoken comments by Ahmadinejad in relation to Israel, do you understand why they would feel so vulnerable and why they would be so anxious about him having a nuclear weapon capability?
Right. No, and that's why they should reclaim their sovereignty rights. See, they can't do what they need to do with their borders, either peace treaties or defend their borders without getting permission from us. But we inadvertently create more problems for them because we propped up Mubarak, gave him $40 to $50 billion, and that arose, you know, that created the blowback. So Al-Qaeda is now both in Libya and in Egypt. Matter of fact, Al-Qaeda is in Iraq, and the Al-Qaeda from Iraq's going over into Syria. So it's not helping Israel. Bernanke is not anxious to go there. None of them are saying, let's go. We need to bomb these sites. That is, I can't imagine. The only people that seem to be doing that are some of the Republican candidates who seem to think that in order to look tougher than anybody else. We're ready to go. And I think that's dangerous. I think that is careless and inflammatory and is not a good way to try to bring peace to the world. That's the way you bring war to the world.
Let's turn to our final question on birth control. You've obviously delivered 4,000 babies in your life. You've cared for women's health for 4 or 5 decades. Did you agree with the Senate's decision to not allow any exemptions to Obama's birth control rule?
Well, I don't want the government in the insurance business. This whole idea that the government can tell the insurance company what they should give. And people now, when you're talking about mandating, birth control pills in an insurance program, that no longer is insurance. That's a mandate. It's an entitlement. So, I mean, traditionally, I remember when I first bought my first insurance policy, the question was, do you want to have OB care under your policy? And I said, yes. And they said, well, that'll cost you so many more dollars each month. So why should they, well, how can it be insurance if they don't know what you're insuring you for? So to say that you have to have on this policy with no increase in pricing, you are going to give out birth control pills, that becomes a welfare issue and a mandate and a cost to the insurance company. I just don't like the government in this business. I'm much stronger in believing the market works these things out, because then it gets the kind of argument that we're into now. I think it's a rather silly argument about who's going to get free birth control pills. I mean, that is way beyond the pale as far as I'm concerned.
Dr. Paul, thank you very much indeed, as always.
Thank you.